So let's generate our motivation. And reflecting on the four wrong conceptions that meditating on the four mindfulnesses counteract. If we take the last one, that phenomena are what make the I, the self, the person, either worthy or unworthy. And to look and see how much we cling to that idea based on there being a real person that is me, or in the case of another person, a real person that is them. And then looking at the different mental factors that arise in our mind or in their mind, then evaluating the person based on these. So, for example, based on the wrong conception that there's a real solid me, then we see faults. I make mistakes. I'm not good enough. I'm not intelligent enough. I don't try hard enough. Or to the opposite, I'm quite wonderful. I can do anything I want. Everybody should admire me because I have all these good qualities. And to see how, based on those mental factors or those traits, then we think that we as a person are worthwhile or not worthwhile. In actual fact, there's no concrete person there to be either worthwhile or not worthwhile. So it's interesting to ask yourself, now, on what grounds do I say I'm worthwhile or not worthwhile based on different thoughts and emotions that arise in the mind? Are those me? Do they make me a good person? Do they make me a bad person? Is there a real me there to be made good or bad? Quite helpful to investigate that. And similarly, if we're blaming somebody else, they have so many bad characteristics, they're so unworthwhile, or somebody else has so many good characteristics, they're spectacular. To really look and what is that person? How in the world do those characteristics, which are impersonal characteristics, make another person good or bad? Who is that person anyway? When we do this kind of analysis, we begin to see that there's no concrete person there, and that instead there's sentient beings, or, we can say there's sentient beings that are simply buffeted around by whatever mental factors happen to manifest in their mind at a certain time. And given that sentient beings have so little self-awareness, so little mindfulness of what to practice and abandon, so little introspective awareness that monitors their own mind, then how could it be possible to love some and hate others, or to both love ourselves and hate ourselves? So in addition to lightening up on our idea of what the person is, this also challenges us to have more compassion towards ourselves and towards others, seeing that we're conditioned phenomena. There's no controller in there that makes us this or makes us that. We're purely conditioned phenomena, designated in dependence upon all those conditioned, ever-changing phenomena, the body and mind. So with an awareness of wisdom and compassion in this way, let us not only listen to teachings, but also live our lives. So are you getting some idea how the 4 establishments of mindfulness can be useful in your life? And I think especially, after this election, where during the election itself, there was so much name calling, so much character assassination, yeah, and it was all based on this last one, that the mental factors are what make a person valuable or unworthy. And to see how we solidified and concretized different candidates, she's like this, he's like this. And they kind of became caricatures, not real people, as we assign different traits to him, different traits to her. Actually, a lot of times we accused this side, said this side was lying, and that side said this side was lying. So everybody was calling everybody else a liar. So who's the real liar, So to just see how we make caricatures out of human beings, when actually, especially when you look at them, both of them have certain degrees of success in society. Neither one of them have any Dharma perspective about what to practice and what to abandon. Neither one of them are thinking about creating good karma and abandon negativity so that they can have a good future rebirth, or so they can attain liberation or full awakening. So if that's the state of both of them, aren't they both worthy of compassion? And when we look at ourselves, we've had the fortune to encounter the Dharma, to know what to practice and what to abandon. But to what extent do we actually do that? How much do we practice what we know to practice and abandon what we know to abandon? And how much are we still pushed by the force of our afflictions and karma? Tremendously pushed. We think that we choose and we decide, but there's a lot of conditioning there, and there's no independent person. So are we, somehow special and different from other sentient beings who are under the influence of afflictions and karma? Do we deserve some kindness and some compassion as well, instead of constantly berating ourselves and criticizing ourselves and telling ourselves we're no good? Okay, so this is how we put the teachings into practice and change how we see ourselves, how we see the world. Mm-hmm. Of course, there's a certain thrill from berating your political opponent. You get this rush of adrenaline. You have the infusion of arrogance. Yeah. And you feel like you have a cause. My cause in the world is to tear this other person to shreds verbally. And both sides are doing that. Yeah. Is that the kind of person we want to be? Okay. So, we need to work on softening our stance on others and on ourselves. Okay. This doesn't mean that we just become apathetic and sign off and say, well, whatever happens in the world, it happens. That's stupidity, I think we still have to speak up for what creates happiness and speak against what creates suffering, but to do it with a whole different viewpoint, where we're not out to get other people. Yeah. Okay. It's a difficult balance because we so easily go to blame, don't we? Something so comfortable about blaming other people, because it means I don't have any responsibility. So I can just blame them and sulk. And yet that hardly brings us happiness, does it? Nor is it a realistic viewpoint. Okay. So these 4 establishments of mindfulness are quite powerful that way, very practical. When we hear the teachings, sometimes it all sounds very theoretical. Oh, there's these 4 ideas here and these 4 misconceptions over here, and we memorize them all. But the point is to find them in ourselves and counteract them. Okay, so we'll continue on with Mindfulness of Phenomena on page 125. So Tsongkhapa explains the phenomena contemplated in the fourth mindfulness as the factors to adopt and discard on the path. Here, the word phenomena refers to both the pure class of phenomena, beneficial phenomena to cultivate, and the impure class, afflictive phenomena to abandon. How many beneficial and afflictive phenomena are there in total? 108. Okay. How many of the beneficial ones? 55 and 53. Okay. By reflecting on these, we enter the practice of the fourth truth of the Aryas, true paths, the essence of which is the realization of emptiness and selflessness. Mental factors are the most important phenomena to consider in mindfulness of phenomena. And by the way, as we go through the rest of the 37, the great majority of them are also mental factors. Yeah. We identify, so in the mindfulness of phenomena, we identify the afflictive mental factors within our own mind and investigate their causes, characteristics, and effects. So here again, we have the causes, the nature of something, and their effects. Before we were doing it about the mind. Now it's about these different mental factors. When afflictive mental factors accompany the primary consciousness, they disturb the mind, making it unclear and unmanageable. Okay, so we can say when anger or laziness or lack of personal integrity afflict the mind becomes pretty out of control, doesn't it? Purified mental factors make the mind clear, manageable, and tranquil. With mindfulness, we observe this in our own experience. We also observe that disturbing mental factors lack a valid basis, depend on ignorance, and can be uprooted by wisdom. So this relates to the question you asked yesterday. Yeah, the difference between the afflictive mental factors and the valid ones. The afflictive ones depend on ignorance, which misconceives phenomena. So because they're based on incorrect apprehension, when we gain the correct apprehension from wisdom, that can overcome the ignorance, and then the basis on which those afflictive mental factors rest has been destroyed. Beneficial mental factors are supported by reasoning and are capable of counteracting disturbing ones. Okay, so the beneficial mental factors, we can use reasoning to show that they are useful and reliable, and they are capable of overcoming the, dysfunctional ones. So they don't depend on ignorance to exist. Moreover, positive attitudes and emotions can be increased limitlessly. So this is really spectacular. His Holiness uses the example of an athlete, and like if you're doing high jump, there's only so high a human being can jump. And every time the athlete tries to go higher, he or she also has to cover the territory that they already jumped that high. So a lot of their energy is used for just, jumping 3 feet and then some more energy to jump another few inches, or jumping 4 feet and more energy to jump after that. Whereas when we're working with mental good qualities, you don't have to already go over what you've accomplished. Yeah. And like jumping over the initial 3 feet, you can build on what you've accomplished so far. Of course, this means maintaining what you've accomplished. If you stop practicing, then of course, you lose things. But if you have a steady practice, then you can keep building. Okay. None of these mental factors is the person. Very important. Yeah, we are not our anger. We are not our greed. We are not our selfishness. Okay. Yet conventionally existent self, the one that is merely designated in dependence upon the aggregates, that one exists. This realization that persons and phenomena are empty of inherent existence, yet exist as imputations, is the true path leading to true cessations. In the Pali Mahasatipatthana Sutra, 5 sets of phenomena serve as the objects of mindfulness of phenomena. Okay, so these are the 5 hindrances, the 5 aggregates, the 6 sources, also called the 6 sense bases, the 7 awakening factors, and the 4 truths. Okay, if you like lists of categories, Buddhism's really for you. Okay, so the sequence of the 5 sets, is itself a map. So this is quite interesting. You have these 5 sets, and how working with each set, helps you progress to the next one and build on the previous one. But again, this doesn't mean that you only do the practice of a specific set in that order and never before and never after. Okay, so the sequence of the 5 sets is itself a map. Mindfulness of the 5 hindrances comes first because they are the major impediments to development of the mind, specifically to cultivating serenity and insight. Overcoming them is an essential first step, enabling us to explore the field of our experience using the framework of the 5 aggregates and 6 sources. As insight develops, the 7 awakening factors become prominent, and as they mature, penetrating understanding of the 4 truths arises. This leads to understanding the ultimate truth of the Dharma. Okay, so we start out with the 5 hindrances. Sense infatuation, ill will, drowsiness and dullness, restlessness or excitement, and remorse and doubt, which are big hindrances to developing specifically serenity, but also ethical conduct and any kind of tranquility in the mind that gives the mind some space to think about other things. So when we overcome them or just even suppress them, it enables us to explore the field of our experience. So what's the field of our experience? The 5 aggregates: form, feelings, discriminations, miscellaneous factors, and consciousness. And the 6 sources. The 6 sources have to do with the object, the cognitive faculty, and the consciousness for each of the 6 senses: eye, ear, nose, tongue, touch, and mental sense. Okay, so that's the framework, the existing world that we're investigating. As insight into these develops, then the 7 awakening factors become prominent. And these we'll get to them soon, and they have a lot to do with solidifying our wisdom and our concentration, or stabilizing our wisdom and concentration. And as they mature, penetrative insight, penetrative understanding of the 4 truths arise. Okay, so that enables us to go into the Four Truths with increasing depth and understanding. And this leads to the ultimate truth of the Dharma, which is nirvana. Okay, then the Pali sense emptiness in the Sanskrit sense, but they come to the same point. Mindfulness of the five hindrances requires us to, 1, be aware of the presence of each hindrance when it manifests and its absence after it has subsided. Okay, so to note these when they come in the mind and be able to give them a label. Yeah, because if we can't note them and, designate them, then we don't recognize them and they just take over our mind. Yeah. If anger comes up, if we say this is anger, then we have some kind of ability to start to oppose it. But if we can't even recognize anger when it comes up, and instead we're thinking that person's wrong, I've got to correct them, then there's no hope for overcoming our anger. So we can't even see that it's there. Okay, so that's the first thing, to be aware of the presence of the hindrances. Then 2, to know the factors causing each hindrance to arise. So to do some investigation, what makes my anger arise? What am I believing and thinking that make my anger arise? And here we come into some of what I like to call our rules of the universe. Everybody has to like me. Everybody has to do what I want them to do. I must always continually be comfortable. I must always have my way. And how these kind of presuppositions, are the cause these hindrances and support these hindrances. 3, to understand how to temporarily suppress each hindrance. So to know the temporary antidote to each hindrance. So for sensual desire, what do we meditate on? Impermanence, death, things like this. For anger, and ill will, what do we meditate on? Love and fortitude, okay? For drowsiness and dullness, what do we meditate on? Yeah, topics that uplift the mind. Yeah, and we also brighten our meditation, visualizing light, checking our posture, making sure we aren't too warm, getting exercise. Okay, for restlessness or excitement and remorse, let's start one at a time. What do we do for excitement or restlessness? Yeah, that can help. When it's going towards attachment, we may also apply the antidotes for attachment. But restlessness is often just an anxious mind, anxiety, bringing up all sorts of, worst case scenarios that's going to happen. So breathing meditation can help to do that, as well as, looking at those dramas and horror stories, all of which are starring ourselves, and asking how likely they are to occur, and if we're totally without resources if they do occur. Okay, and for doubt, what's the antidote? Study, asking questions, also breathing meditation, because this is doubt in going towards the wrong conclusion. So again, it's a mind that's spinning. There's an element of anxiety in this kind of doubt, just stirring up the mind, but with no actual purpose to it. So there's different kinds of doubt. And then 4, understand how to eliminate each hindrance completely. So that's by the realization of emptiness and selflessness. In Mindfulness of the Five Aggregates, we understand the characteristics of each aggregate. Okay, characteristics of form, of feeling, of discriminations and so on. Then we focus again, knowing its origins and its causes and its disappearance. Yeah, its disappearance, what it brings in its wake, by investigating the conditions through which each aggregate arises and its nature of impermanence. So that's quite helpful, you know. What makes us have the five aggregates? Ignorance, afflictions, and karma, okay? And, why are the aggregates impermanent? Because all conditioned phenomena are impermanent. They're all produced by causes. When the causal energy ceases, the result that was produced by them also disappears or changes. Okay, mindfulness of the six sources involves seeing their role in causing the fetters or the afflictions to arise. So how cognizing different objects, the object there sparks the seeds of our afflictions and causes them to arise. Yeah, and so this gives us a lot of information about what kind of things we need to be careful when we're with. Yeah, and because we know that our afflictions so easily arise due to them. Okay. We then learn to temporarily suppress the afflictions and hindrances and how to eliminate them through insight into their actual empty nature. Mindfulness of each of the 7 awakening factors entails understanding, 1, when it is present and absent in our minds, so similar. 2, the causes for it to arise, again similar. So these are virtuous mental factors. It's good if we do some investigation into what makes our virtuous mental factors manifest. Instead of just like sitting there and praying that they manifest, what are their causes, and how can I create their causes? And three, how to bring it to fulfillment once it arises. So once some virtuous mental factor has arisen, how do we continue it? How do we enhance it? With mindfulness of the Four Truths, we clearly know how dukkha arises due to its causes and the possibility of attaining cessation by cultivating the path. When you look at all of these, there's a lot of overlap between them. The 6 sources can be included in the 5 aggregates. Okay? The 5 aggregates are the first of the 4 truths. The first 2 of the 4 truths, I should say. So, there's a lot of overlap in these, but what we see is that each way of looking at it is helping us gain a broader perspective and a deeper understanding of what these different elements are. Okay. When our insight wisdom is very familiar with the 3 characteristics, the mind will temporarily break through the conditioned world and have a glimpse of the unconditioned. Okay, so this is according to the Pali tradition. So when you're meditating with on the 3 characteristics, impermanence, dukkha, and not self, those are done with serenity and insight, and that is called worldly insight, because even if you realize selflessness, it's considered worldly insight because the objects, the aggregates that you're looking at are worldly. They're contaminated. Yeah. So it's worldly insight. When the mind gets strong enough, that's when this breakthrough happens. And the breakthrough is you go beyond these worldly objects and the worldly insight that investigates them, and you have a direct perception of nirvana. Okay, and that establishes somebody as a stream enterer. This is how they describe it in the Pali tradition. So, that the wisdom now sees and understands this is the cessation of dukkha. Okay, so this goes back to the sixth super knowledge. Yeah. So here you're just beginning to develop that super knowledge because you haven't ceased all dukkha yet. However, the mind cannot yet hold this realization for long and falls back to the conditioned world. But now we know with certainty that the 5 aggregates, 6 sources, and so forth are dukkha in nature. Seeing the evolution of samsara from ignorance and craving, we know the origin of dukkha. Through our own experience, we know the Noble Eightfold Path is the true path leading to the cessation of dukkha. This first breakthrough experience, during which we have direct and full knowledge of the unconditioned, establishes us as a stream enterer. By repeatedly developing insight, we will attain full realization of the unconditioned. So in that tradition, you have the first glimpse of nirvana at stream entry. Then as you deepen that and are able to extend the glimpse, you become a once returner, and that pacifies more afflictions than a non-returner. That realization pacifies more afflictions than an arhat, and then that uproots all the afflictions. Okay. The 4 establishments of mindfulness are not mutually exclusive practices. One can be the framework in which the others are contemplated. For example, if mindfulness of breath is our primary practice, when a strong feeling or emotion arises, we contemplate it temporarily. When it subsides, we return to contemplating the breath. Okay, or when a strong emotion arises, you switch to mindfulness of phenomena. Okay, to understand that emotion. Then you go back to your mindfulness of the breath. Okay, so again, I keep emphasizing this, that all the overlaps, and that even though things are given in a sequence, they aren't like distinct packages, this, then this, then this, and with no overlap or anything. Okay, that all these things are interconnected in a very important way. Okay, so now the 4 establishments of mindfulness for bodhisattvas. According to the Madhyamikas, bodhisattvas practice the 4 establishments of mindfulness with the motivation of bodhicitta, and they cultivate the wisdom realizing the subtle selflessness of both persons and phenomena, their emptiness of inherent existence. Okay, so the emptiness of inherent existence is the subtle selflessness. The emptiness of self-sufficient, substantially existent person is the coarse selflessness, according to the Madhyamikas. This wisdom realizes that the body, feelings, mind, and phenomena are empty of existing from their own side or under their own power. Bodhisattvas also meditate on the 4 establishments of mindfulness by seeing the body, feelings, mind, and phenomena as existing by being merely designated by term and concept. They see the body is like an illusion, feelings like a dream, the mind like space, and phenomena like fleeting clouds. Okay, so when you meditate on emptiness, then you're having you're realizing the ultimate truth. Okay, when you that's called space-like meditation. Yeah, because it's empty like space. There's no appearances of conventional phenomena at that time or of inherent existence. When you arise from that meditative equipoise, then phenomena appear to you truly existent, but you don't believe that appearance. So you see them as like illusions. They are not illusions, but they are like illusions. Why aren't they illusions? Because illusions, the object of the illusion doesn't exist. The face in the mirror doesn't exist. The water in the mirage doesn't exist. But things are like illusions in that they appear one way but exist another way. Okay? So how do you meditate here? I think this is quite beautiful, that the body is like an illusion. Yeah, because the body appears so real, doesn't it? But after you've realized emptiness, you can see the body as, it's like a hologram. Yeah, or like a person in the television set. There's an appearance, but there's nothing there that you can hold on to. Okay. The feelings are feelings that we are so attached to. My feelings, my happiness, my suffering are like a dream. Yeah? Anything to cling to in a dream? Nope. The mind is like space. Yeah, we can't find the mind anywhere. Yeah. No color, no shape, no inherent existence. And phenomena are like fleeting clouds. So in the space of the mind, all of our moods, all of our emotions, virtuous and non-virtuous, are like clouds passing through. Clouds don't have any substance, do they? They're there and then they evaporate. Okay? So in this way, Bodhisattvas do both space-like and illusion-like meditation on emptiness in relation to these four objects. Lot to meditate on here. Bodhisattvas also meditate on the impurity and impermanence of others' bodies to realize that sentient beings suffer in cyclic existence. Okay, so we meditate on, their foulness and impermanence, not just to subdue our attachment and lust towards other people's bodies, but to be able to see that they suffer due to having a body that's under the influence of afflictions and karma, in the same way that we suffer due to having that kind of body. Seeing sentient beings bound to bodies polluted by ignorance, bodhisattvas generate great compassion and bodhicitta that wants to free them from that. Okay, so that's the four establishments of mindfulness. We'll now go on to the four supreme strivings. Very often, what's the fourth supreme strivings? The Tibetans translated as the four supreme abandonments. When I was learning the Pali tradition and looking at the Sanskrit tradition, I realized the Sanskrit and Pali word for striving and the Sanskrit and Pali word for abandonment are very similar in how they're spelled, but they're not exactly alike. So I suspect that there was a mistranslation from Sanskrit to Tibetan. That's my supposition. How dare I say that? Okay, so having meditated on the four establishments of mindfulness, especially mindfulness of phenomena, we aspire to develop positive qualities and remove afflictions. Okay, so that's what the mindfulness of phenomena impels us to do, develop positive qualities and remove afflictions. The four supreme strivings enable us to do this. So we arouse aspiration and apply effort to, okay, so in other words, we strive for, first, preventing non-virtues, afflictions and destructive karma from arising, for example, by restraining our senses. So when we know what sense objects trigger our afflictions, You know, we know that as soon as we're around our own particular version of chocolate cake, which could be, you know, I'm using that as an example. It could be the person that you're sexually attracted to. It could be the fame that you want. It could be the approval and praise that you want. It could be anything, you know, the steamboat or the yacht that you want. Okay, that your red sports car, you know, it could be anything. Okay, but when you notice what sense objects trigger the afflictions, then you restrain the affliction, you restrain your senses, and that helps to prevent non-virtue, the afflictions and the karma that is created by it from arising. Then you also work on abandoning non-virtue already generated by applying the antidotes. So, you know, if you missed with the first one and didn't prevent non-virtue from arising, then when it's there, you have to apply the antidotes to it. Then you arouse aspiration and apply effort to, number 3, generating new virtues. For example, cultivating the 4 establishments of mindfulness and the 7 awakening factors, or keeping your precepts better. Yeah, whatever practice of virtue you need to work on at that moment. And then you also arouse aspiration and apply effort to 4, enhancing the virtues that have already been generated, especially by sustaining favorable meditation objects to attain full samadhi. Okay, so when you've generated some virtue, enhance it, continue it to to attain samadhi. Our dedication prayer, may the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow, okay, is like the third one, generating new virtues. May that born, no, not a, may that already born not decline but increase forevermore. Okay, that's like the fourth one, to enhance the virtues that have been generated. Okay. So in addition to counteracting laxity and excitement, 2 faults impeding serenity, the 4 supreme strivings balance and enhance serenity and insight. If one or the other is too strong, we strive to strengthen the other one, so to keep them in balance. Then the 4 bases of supernormal power. So with the 4 supreme strivings, yeah. So here again, we're in each section, we're bridging from the previous set to the next set. So, you know, having meditated in the 4 establishments of mindfulness, especially mindfulness of phenomena, now we want to generate positive qualities, so we do the 4 strivings. You know, with the 4 strivings, you know, we make effort to reduce and eliminate afflictions and destructive emotions, strengthen positive qualities, and refine serenity and insight. So on that basis, now we practice meditative concentrations that give rise to supernormal powers. So you can see how these sets, although they overlap a lot, how each set builds on the previous one. Okay. So the 4 bases of supernormal power are single-pointed concentrations of aspiration, effort, intention, and investigation. Through practicing them, practitioners develop special powers to emanate and transform things. The objects emanated or transformed by supernormal powers, such as, this is the first of the 6 superknowledges, is supernormal powers. The objects emanated or transformed by supernormal powers, such as making one's body very large, emanating several bodies, and transforming an ugly place into a beautiful one. Okay, that's how every time you complain about the environment, okay, that's what you need to practice. Yeah, the supernormal power transforming an ugly place into a beautiful one. That's going to be what I tell people to do now every time they don't like something. Yeah. Yeah. You develop single pointed concentration and you transform it. Yeah. That's the best way to do it. Okay. So these are the objects of the four bases of supernormal powers. With these powers, bodhisattvas may visit many Buddha lands and accumulate vast merit by making offerings to a multitude of Buddhas. So you can see how supernormal powers really enhance a bodhisattva's opportunity to create merit and to benefit sentient beings, and so why they're so important for bodhisattvas. The four establishments of mindfulness are the mental factors of wisdom and mindfulness. The four supreme strivings are the mental factors of effort. Okay? And the four bases of supernormal powers are the mental factor of concentration associated with the mental factor of aspiration and so forth. So aspiration, effort, intention, and investigation, those four mental factors, are the means to refine our concentration in order to develop powerful meditative abilities. So supernormal powers are gained through mental development, specifically deep concentration. Okay? But you also have to have the aspiration to develop these. Yeah, they don't come just naturally from having concentration. There's this whole training that you have to go through to develop these supernormal powers. It isn't like you just concentrate and poof, they come. Yeah, you have to train the mind in all sorts of ways. Okay. Worldly supernormal powers include making manifestations of one's body, flying in space, walking on water, passing through walls or mountains, and going under the earth. However, the highest supernormal power is unpolluted liberation of the mind, or nirvana. The suttas explain two factors contributing to concentration. The first is determined striving. So you have to have a determination and effort. Yeah. The second is unique to each of these concentrations. So aspiration is a deep desire or wish to attain supernormal powers that fuels our efforts to attain samadhi. So it looks like at the beginning when you're developing, your aspiration is the foremost. It doesn't mean that you don't later have an aspiration. It's just here it needs to be very strong. Effort, the second one, spurs the cultivation of concentration, leading to supernormal powers. Okay, so like I said, you have to do all this training, mental training with states of concentration and how to manipulate the external elements and so forth in order to generate these powers. So you need the aspiration to do it, you need the effort to do this over time. By the means of intention, one calms the mind, making it tranquil, pure, and radiant. Translating that, the Sanskrit term is chitta, which usually means mind. And I've seen it translated in many different ways, most often intention, but sometimes just as mind, sometimes as other things. I've never really found a translation that seems to match the description, which is calms the mind, makes it tranquil, pure, and radiant. Okay? Through the resulting clarity of mind, we gain a concentration that is a basis for supernormal attainments. Okay, and then investigation, the fourth one, examines the mind and the factors promoting and hindering its development, the development of the mind. Fueled by a wish to investigate and realize nirvana, we strive to attain concentration. These four concentrations can be combined with wisdom to attain liberation. So it looks like the first three are what are getting you to having the basis for supernormal attainments. And then investigation. Yeah, this is interesting. This is kind of going to be a form of, generating wisdom. Examines the mind and the factors that promote and hinder the development of the mind. So it looks like here, not only development of the mind and supernormal powers, but development of the mind so that it can attain nirvana. Because the supernormal powers are not nirvana. Okay, and so it helps us generate the concentration that we really use to realize nirvana and attain liberation. Okay, then the 5 faculties and 5 powers. These are the next 2 sets. The 5 faculties and the 5 powers have the same names and are the same qualities, but the 5 powers are stronger and fuller development of the 5 faculties. Okay. With the 5 faculties, we are still unable to completely remedy the opposing factors. Okay, so remember these opposing factors, because the 5 faculties and the 5 powers are the ones that overcome them. Non-faith. Okay, non-faith is not just a lack of faith or trust or confidence in the path, but it's the opposite of having faith, kind of like, I don't really believe, yeah, or doubt, something like that. You don't have full confidence in the path you're practicing or in your guides or whatever. Okay, second opposing factor, our good old friend, laziness. Third one, forgetfulness. Fourth one, distraction. And fifth one, faulty wisdom. So faulty wisdom is, you might remember when we talked about the wrong views, certain of the wrong views we called corrupted intelligence. Yeah, so those kinds of things, different misconceptions. So these may still occasionally arise. When the 5 faculties are strong enough not to be dislodged by their opposites, they become the 5 powers. So the 5 faculties, you're really working on overcoming these 5 opposing powers, but you don't have the full ability to do it. You're in the process. You're on the early stages of doing it. Yeah. When you've gotten to the point where your 5 faculties are strong enough so that they can't be dislodged, and overthrown by the 5 opposing factors, then they become the 5 powers. Okay. With the 5 powers, we have mastery over the opposing factors and are able to override, though not yet fully abandon them. Fully abandon them comes with nirvana. Okay. Although the 5 qualities are spoken of individually, in practice they function harmoniously together. Okay? So all 5 may simultaneously accompany a single primary consciousness. The 5 faculties and 5 powers reach fullness in nirvana. Okay, so all 5 of these can come, because they're all mental factors, so they all can accompany the same virtuous mental consciousness. So first we'll do how the Sanskrit tradition describes them, and then how the Pali tradition does. So the Sanskrit tradition describes the 5. Faith, refers to believing faith that has confidence in the path of practice and in the resultant liberation, or for Bodhisattvas, full awakening. So you're confident in the path and the result that you're practicing. Yeah, that kind of faith is important. Without that, you're not going to have much energy to practice. This faith, it doesn't arise, it's not blind faith, it doesn't arise out of nowhere. It arises from investigation. So it's based on investigative wisdom. So it is naturally combined with wisdom and has conviction in the Four Truths. So it's not, I believe, because the Buddha said so. It's like, I have confidence in this because I've checked it out myself. Okay, the second faculty and power effort overcomes the laziness interrupting meditation on the Four Truths and enables us to quickly realize them. For Bodhisattvas, this effort also includes enthusiasm for engaging in the six perfections. You noticing how often effort comes up? Are you noticing how often wisdom comes up in the form of investigation of one sort or another? Okay, third one, mindfulness. This one comes up a lot too. Ensures that we do not forget the objects and aspects of the Four Truths. For Bodhisattvas, this mindfulness is conjoined with bodhicitta, seeking others' welfare. Okay, so objects and aspects of the Four Truths. When we look at the truth of dukkha, it's the contaminated aggregates, and the aspect is seeing them for what they are. From the origin, are all the afflictions and karma, and the aspect is seeing them as something to be abandoned. True cessation, we're seeing the emptiness of the mind. The aspect there is something that we want to actualize. The true paths, all the virtuous mental factors, especially the wisdom realizing selflessness, that's the object. The aspect is something to realize. We have to realize that. Okay? So concentration, the fourth faculty and power, eliminates the five faults, preventing perfect concentration on the Four Truths, and focuses single-pointedly on them. So the five faults, remember, the five faults of concentration: laziness, forgetting the object, excitement and laxity, not applying the antidotes, and over applying the antidotes. Okay. So it eliminates the five faults, preventing perfect concentration on the Four Truths, and focuses single-pointedly on them. It also realizes the emptiness of true existence of all phenomena. And then wisdom, here it comes again, overcomes wrong conceptions about the Four Truths and individually discriminates their features and qualities as well as their ultimate mode of existence. So it knows the Four Truths, both their conventional nature, how they exist and function in the world, and their ultimate nature, how they actually exist. And bodhisattvas cultivate wisdom, realizing all aspects of phenomena. That's the wisdom of omniscience. Okay, now the way the Pali tradition describes these, and it's interesting to look back and forth between the two ways of describing them. There's a lot of similarities, and then just, different emphases here. So faith has trust and confidence in the three jewels, especially in the Buddha's awakening and the Dharma teachings as the path leading to it. It directs us to the path and keeps us on it, even when we go through bouts of questioning. The power of this kind of faith cannot be overcome by doubt, skepticism, or disbelief. Okay, so here we're seeing that faith that's based on wisdom, that faith that's based on knowledge, it doesn't get rattled when, doubt comes, if skepticism comes, if disbelief comes, or if other people challenge our views. Okay, why doesn't this faith get dislodged? Because it's a valid mind and it's supported by wisdom. If it were blind faith, then as soon as we meet somebody else with a different philosophical view, we go, oh, yeah, well, that view sounds really good, and we start following the other one. I remember when we studying with Geshe-Suna Rinchen when he was teaching us Chandrakirti supplement, and there's a huge refutation in it about the Samkhya's view. Yeah, huge. And the Samkhya's have these very strange views, from our perspective. For example, they say that the result exists in the cause already. And their way of, establishing what needs to be abandoned and what needs to be practiced is quite strange to our views. And we used to say to Geshe-la, why do we have to learn the Samkhya view and refute it? We already think it's nonsensical and don't believe it. And he looked at us and he said, look, these people are not jerks. And in ancient India, there was a lot of debate going back and forth. And you people with little wisdom, if some Samkhya came in here and explained their system to you and debated your beliefs, you would probably become one of them. Yeah, so he flattened our pride. Yeah, which was very good. But the point is that, how important wisdom is to have strong faith. And that strong faith is not just, I believe, because we're afraid to open our mind and think about other things. It's I believe because I've opened my mind and thought about other things, and I've come to this conclusion. Okay, you see the difference? And that's why sometimes the people who have blind faith in whatever religion they have blind faith in, that's why they often get so scared when other beliefs are mentioned. Yeah, because if they were to examine the basis of their belief, it might become difficult for them to sustain it. But their belief brings them emotional comfort, so they want to continue having that belief. So for these people, that works well. If it helps them to become a better person, to develop love, kindness, compassion, forgiveness, that's fine. I'm not going to destroy their faith. Okay? But for people who are ready to look deeper and really look at the truth, then it's so helpful to open our mind and really investigate and look at different philosophies and try and understand for ourselves what really exists and what doesn't exist, what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. And to do this free of emotion, in the sense that I think as human beings, this is my idea, that we're very emotional beings. So first we decide what belief will make us feel the best, and then we find reasons to support that belief. It should be the opposite. But we are, when people are grieving, for example, yeah, they want a belief system that is going to help them grieve and process their grief. Okay? They aren't at that time necessarily looking for, they always say, why did this happen? Why did this happen? They aren't really looking for why. They're looking for, tell me something. What they're really saying is, tell me something that will help assuage my grief. Yeah? That's what they're really saying. Okay? So that's why, when people come to us with their problems, we have to be very skillful. They may ask one question, but we have to see what question are they really asking, and address that question. Okay? So, for example, I'll tell you about a big mistake I made. Remember when the plane was shot down over Lockerbie? Yeah, many years ago. And there were a bunch of students, I think the University of Syracuse, one of the universities there, were in it, and they got killed. So I was on a tour of the U.S. going different places. Somebody organized it to speak. And one stop was that university. And people there, I gave my Dharma talk, and then people said, how do you explain, the destruction of this plane by the Libyan terrorists in Buddhism? How do you make sense of it? So I talked about karma. That was the wrong thing to talk about. Because they asked, how do you explain it? I answered their question on face value. It did not help them. Because they're saying they misunderstood completely and said, oh, you mean those people are bad people and they deserve to die? No, that's not what karma is saying. But because those people didn't have a background in Buddhist thought, a background in understanding karma, to introduce that explanation to them at that time was not skillful on my part. Yeah. What they were really asking was not how do you explain that and why do they happen, is say something to us to help us get over our grief. If I had realized what they were really asking, what I would have said to them is, yeah, I can only imagine how much you're hurting because you lost your friends and your relatives. And this thing seems totally inexplicable because your friends and relatives they're wonderful people. And why do they have to suffer? And this is so difficult to understand. Yeah. But now, the best thing you can do to help them is send them on to wherever you believe they're going. Send them on with the full force of your love, your prayers, your aspirations, that they be happy, that they be compassionate, that their loving heart continue to exist and expand in wherever they're going now. That's how I should have answered it, because that would have helped them. That was the question they were really asking. Okay? So, where were we? I got off on a distraction. Faith. Thank you. Okay. So, yes, faith in the Pali tradition. Okay. So you see, the point is here, how we deal things with other people and how we do things for ourselves can be different. Yeah. So with ourselves, we really have to open our mind and examine how things exist, and look past that emotion, because our aspiration is for what is true. What is liberation? Not what will make us feel good in that very moment. Eventually, as we transform our mind, truth makes us feel good. But initially, sometimes the truth, it pushes our buttons. Yeah. Like you're sitting here in Dharma class and the teacher says, we all have anger, and happens to look at you at that time. They're looking at everybody, actually. But of course, when you look out in the audience, you have to, look at different people. And you're looking at the teacher when they say, oh, I have anger. Oh no, I don't have anger. I don't want to look at my anger. How dare somebody see what a bad temper I have? I don't want them to know this about me. I just want to feel like I'm a good person. I want them to like me, and then kind of, you're not looking for the truth, which is, yeah, we have anger. Don't we? Anybody here who doesn't have anger? Please, if you don't have anger, teach, and I will listen to you because I have anger and I need teachings. But, we're so afraid of the truth sometimes. Yeah. Anger is a little bit easier to recognize. Somebody tells us we have attachment. Oh, we don't want to own up to that one. I have attachment. I have greed. No, I don't. I have perfect equanimity. There's no lust in my mind. Yeah, really. Okay, so, to really get our minds, so we're looking for truth, not just feel good. Yeah. And so I think this is the difference between what we sometimes call Dharma light and traditional Dharma. Okay? So Dharma light has its role, but it's not traditional Dharma. Okay? So Dharma light maybe makes people feel good for a while. Hopefully they'll then be able to question more and they'll get into the actual Dharma that the Buddha taught. Yeah. The danger is if they stay stuck in Dharma light. But it still helps them. So we can't totally throw it away. Okay. Then effort, the second one, is an energetic mind. It combats laziness, heedlessness, and unconscientiousness, and facilitates the practice of the four supreme strivings. The power of effort is not affected by laziness, procrastination, and discouragement. Wow. Wouldn't you like to have that kind of effort? That's real joyous effort. No discouragement, no mañana en la mañana, no couch potato. Oh, but I want to be a couch potato. What's wrong with being a couch potato? Yeah, I heard our kitchen has an abundance of potatoes now. You put them all on the couch. Okay, then mindfulness keeps us aware and cognizant of what we are doing and what to practice and abandon in daily life. That comes again and again, doesn't it? What to practice, what to abandon. We need to understand that through wisdom, and we need to apply it by mindfulness. So we maintain mindfulness on what to practice and what to abandon. So it's not just bare reflection, noting what happens to be in our mind at a particular moment. In meditation, mindfulness remembers the object of meditation and keeps the mind focused on it. It combats forgetfulness, oblivion, and wandering, and the power of mindfulness cannot be harmed by these obstacles. Oh, again, wouldn't that be nice, Then concentration keeps the mind focused one-pointedly on its chosen object and thus prevents distraction, which was the fourth opposing factor. And then 5, wisdom correctly understands its object, combating ignorance and wrong views and analyzing conditioned phenomena to understand their nature. Wisdom knows the 3 characteristics, correctly understands the 4 truths, and penetrates nirvana. The power of wisdom cannot be harmed by ignorance. Okay. So maybe if we've gone over time already, but maybe a few questions. you have them. Yeah. Okay, so what makes the difference between mindfulness as explained by the Buddha and secular mindfulness? Okay, I talked about it a little bit. Was it on the first day? Yeah, but to abbreviate again, here mindfulness focuses, it's aware, it keeps its object in mind. So in the break time, we remain mindful of what to practice and what to abandon. So, our precepts to practice, the virtuous mental attitudes we want to practice, what to abandon, the 10 non-virtues, the opposite of our precepts, the 6 root afflictions and 20 secondary afflictions. Okay, mindfulness in the buzzword now, it has many different meanings. To some people, it just means being able to focus on something for a little bit of time. For other people, it means bear attention to the contents of the mind. It has many different meanings now, according to who is using it. Okay, but none of them talk about mindfulness of what to practice and what to abandon. Yeah, or none of them talk about mindfulness of the kindness that other beings have shown us. Saying that people, the question is, if we look at others as overpowered by afflictions and karma, it helps us see them as worthy of compassion. But if we see ourselves like that, we might abdicate responsibility for our actions. Actually, no. When we see how overpowered we are, okay, and yet we know we've met the Dharma, we've met the tools to be able to apply. So that means we have to hold ourselves accountable. Anyway, if we want to be happy, we have to hold ourselves accountable. In addition, although seeing others as overpowered or overwhelmed by afflictions and karma, it does not mean that we don't hold them accountable for their actions. Yeah, I mean, people who harm others in society have to be restrained from harming others. Yeah, so they're held responsible. But we hold people responsible without being angry at them. In the same way that we can hold ourselves responsible for our actions without being angry at ourselves. Okay? Yeah, good you asked that. These kinds of things are very important clarifications we need to make. Oh, an example of Dharma light. Well, the Buddha didn't really teach rebirth. He just said that because that's what they believed in society at that time. So the real thing about Dharma is, just have a kind heart towards the people that you love. Yeah, be a good person towards the people around you, especially the people that you love. Yeah. Mindfulness, pay attention to everything in your world. So take delight at, the beauty of this gong. Take delight at just savor your chocolate cake. Bite by bite, really be mindful of the pleasure you experience from your chocolate cake. Okay?